Hey guys, it's your girl Intricate again, and I'm back with another video. Oh my gosh. And today we're actually doing Let's Talk Tech episode 4. I can't believe we're actually on episode 4 already. But today I'm going to be talking to you about software engineering, where to start. Today's going to be about progressing as either an aspiring or a current developer. So I'm going to kind of go through things to do to progress, things I would have done differently in hindsight when I started, and common mistakes made by developers. So we might as well just get straight into it. Let's talk tech. Okay, so the first part is what I actually did to progress as a developer. And the first thing I did was to form a PDP, and that is a personal development plan. So what is a PDP? Like, what actually is it? A PDP is basically an action plan, usually based on awareness, values, reflections, goal setting, planning for self-development, usually within the context of like your career, education, relationships, or just for general self-improvement. So when I started, the first thing my mentor told me to do was make a PDP. And I was like, well, what is that? I never heard of that. But honestly, I can tell you that PDP, even today, over a year later, I've updated it today. Like, I use it regularly. I update it with my achievements, goals that I have, goals that I've met, what I've learned, and it just helps you to keep track of your life. Well, for me, my career, what I've done, what I want to do, where I'm falling short. It's literally a plan, and it's easy for the days to just go by and just one day rolls into another without knowing what you've actually done better or how you've improved. So my PDP really does keep me on track. So in general, why is it important to have a PDP? Well, firstly, it makes the goals clear. If you have a goal, 5 goals or whatever, I'm speaking in the point of a career as a software engineer and what I've done. But if you have a clear goal, you can literally see it in black and white. You could just say, oh, I want to improve my coding skills. You can't just write that as a goal. You can, but if you write it underneath, you can write an action plan. I want to learn this language. I want to have created this app, even if it's just for fun, just to kind of expand my knowledge. So it's like you can look at it, you say, okay, my goal is to achieve this. And I'm sure you've heard this before. Your goals should be SMART. And I don't mean smart, I mean specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So just don't put it out in the air, you'll never get it done. Another good part of a PDP is to keep track of your strengths and your weaknesses. So whether that be you see, okay, in this area I've done a lot, like I've really grown, and not so much in this other area, whether it's talking to your colleagues or kind of asking for help when you need it. And altogether, this just means that you're going to have improved performance and increased motivation. Your performance is better because you're actually keeping track of your performance. It's a progress tracker. It literally can be a progress tracker. You can see how fast you're doing things. You can see when you're burning out, because there'll be a month where you're like, tick, 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 I've ticked all this off. And another month you're thinking, I've not really done anything. And I just might put a glimpse of my PDP on the side. You guys don't really deserve it though. Have you liked, commented, and subscribed? Have you? So some of the things included in my PDP are my career aspirations and goals, where I want to be in the next year basically, and things I want to achieve. Also my wins tracker. It's lovely to see what you've already achieved. It's very motivating to like just look at the list and be like, I've done all that, and it makes you feel good about yourself, and it makes you want to continue. What can I do bigger and better next year? And we are in 2022, so it's very important. You can also have stack development. So I started as an Android developer, but I had never done that before. So it was important for me to stay on top of my learning and develop my skills, especially in a new field. You can also have feedback. That's very important. When people praise you or tell you ways to improve, you can literally just jot it down, and it's something you can look back on in a few months and think, have I actually improved in that? Have I taken on that feedback? Or have I continued doing the good things they said I was doing? Am I still doing those things? Am I on top of my game? I also include like my company's culture and values, because I think it's good to just refresh yourself with what your company expects from an employee. So just to kind of sometimes just look through and think, am I exhibiting those values and those behaviors that are expected of me as an employee. And a timeline is always good. If you know there's certain things you want to hit throughout the year, or certain things you want to do or fulfill or achieve, it's always nice to have a timeline of like, I want to do this by then. Some people do professional qualifications, so do I. So it's like, okay, this is when this exam is, this is when I need to submit this by. So just a timeline just to give you a rough idea of your deadlines over the next year. But yeah, those are a few things that are in my PDP, just in case you didn't know where to start. Another thing I think is very important, especially when you're just starting out, is to have a mentor. So that's someone in your team or industry that's ahead of you in their career. I always say you don't know what you don't know. If you don't know it, how do you know you don't know it? Does that make sense? But yeah, so it's just someone that can point you in the right direction, or, you know, kind of go over things that you didn't realize you had missed. I think it's a lot better than just blindly navigating, especially when you're first starting out, because it can be very, very daunting when there's a world of knowledge and you have not even taken the first step. And I find having a mentor that is kind of your go-to person initially is a lot easier than trying to like approach a new team member. It can be very daunting at first. Just kind of going to someone like, I need help. Whereas if you have your go-to person that you build a relationship with, it's a lot easier in the beginning, and then over time your confidence will build, you get to know your team members, and you know, it's all good from there. Another good thing that I realized when starting out was to do code reviews. They can seem really daunting at first. This is where another team member, you know, produces a bit of code for the app. For me, I'm a mobile developer, so for the app, and you review their code and just give them suggestions like, maybe you could do this part better, or ask them questions like, why did you do this in a certain way? It's all positive. It's not like, why did you do that? That's wrong. It's like, okay, maybe this is a better way of doing it, or could you explain to me why you used that instead of this? So code review is a good learning ground because it's a conversation about code, and they will respond like, oh, I use it because it's more efficient, or you're right, I didn't think about that, I'm going to change it now. So code reviews are a great learning ground to learn about code and to have that open discussion. Also, people reviewing your own code, especially as a new developer, I was scared to put my code out for code reviews because it's like, I know I don't really know what I'm doing, so I know they're going to be like, I think you should change this, that. But the thing is, initially it is like that because I am new and I don't know the best way to do things, but I learned from that, and over time I could put a code review, like I could put code out for review, and they're like, yeah, perfect, approved. So don't run away from it. I know it's actually kind of scary at first. It's like saying judge me, but it is very useful. The next thing that's good for progression is to be inquisitive and humble. So don't be afraid to say, oh, I don't know this. Like, tell your team that you don't know something and ask questions, because if you don't, it's only ever going to hinder your learning. If you don't know something and you spend the full day trying to crack it, like it's been 7 hours you've been trying to crack it, and it's because you don't want to ask, you don't want to seem stupid, or like you don't know what you're doing, you've wasted the whole day. You could have asked someone and they could have explained it in 30 minutes and then you know, and then you spend the rest of the day doing something else. Don't waste your time. Just be humble. Go and ask the questions that you need to ask, because at the end of the day, they know you're new, they know you're just starting out, or you're a new developer, and they're actually there to help. No matter whether it feels like, okay, I feel dumb, one day you won't. The next time you're going to be the one helping someone else or teaching them what you've just learned. It's fine. Someone in your team has probably gone through the same problem or the same obstacle that you're facing, and all it takes is to put in the team chat, hey, I'm working on this piece of work and I can't seem to figure this out. You'll find that a response will come quickly. Someone will be like, oh my gosh, I worked on something like that a couple months back and all I had to do was actually this. It took me forever to figure it out. Well, it didn't take you forever because you just asked. So don't be afraid. Be inquisitive and be humble. Another thing is to pace yourself. Take regular breaks. I know sometimes you can be working on something and you get so into it, you want to solve that problem, that you're there for 3 hours staring at a screen like, I'm nearly there, I can crack it. Sometimes just walk away, have a 5-minute break, make a cup of tea. You come back and then boom, you're enlightened. Okay, I get it now. Coming back with a fresh pair of eyes. Don't go down the rabbit hole. It's not good for you. I'm telling you, I've been there. Which is why I'm telling you, because this is the fastest way to burn out. Like, okay, let's say you spent the whole day and you said, I want to finish it. You finished it. But the next day, I'm telling you, you're not going to have the same vim. So it's better to just pace yourself and keep your momentum going from Monday to Friday throughout the week, rather than spending Monday and then by Wednesday you're like, oh, no, don't do that. I think a good way to make sure you don't go down this coding spiral is to make a plan before you start coding. So if you know you have to fulfill 1, 2, 3, 4, like literally make a plan, break it down into smaller tasks. So let's say you break a piece of work down into like a checklist of 7 things that you said, okay, this is definitely something I need to fulfill, and by the time I get to the 7th, the work is done. Then at least you know you can take a break between each subtask. As humans, we just want that feeling of completion. So if you don't have this plan, completion means the end. So if you break it down, you can say, okay, I've done that little bit, and you'll feel it'll be a lot easier to walk away, have a break, and come back to the next bit. So that's what I like to do. Just make a plan, break it down into smaller pieces, and that way you don't just kind of run through it. And the last thing is, don't force it. Like, don't force it. You should be passionate about what you do, especially if you're a software engineer or an aspiring developer. I think coding is not something you should do if you don't enjoy it or have, I'm not saying you have to be so passionate that you're going to die on the line, but just I think you should kind of enjoy it or get a sense of fulfillment from doing it. And I think this can only reflect positively in the quality of your work. If you actually like what you're doing, you're going to do extra research, make sure it's more effective, more efficient, and the quality will be a lot better. If you're just doing it for the sake of the peas or whatever, you're going to just do it to get the job done, and the quality won't be the same as someone who enjoys it and wants it to be the best it can be. And also, when you're actually working, like when you like what you do and you're doing these things, your employer or your manager would probably notice. When you have meetings or one-to-ones, I think there's a big difference between someone who's passionate about their job and someone who's just there to tick a box or to collect a paycheck. I think managers do notice those people that are really enjoying their job and actually are invested in the company. And off the back of that, people like that are more trustworthy to their team members and their manager. When you know someone is actually doing the job because they like it and they'll do the best they can, that leads to bigger responsibilities, promotion, more interesting projects, etc. So and rewards as well. Obviously not everyone has that immediate choice, but it's still something I would say you should consider. So the next section is what I would have done differently in hindsight. So things that I would have changed or things that I didn't do that I think I should have done. The first thing is continuing with more independent learning. So when I first came, because I didn't know Kotlin, I had never done app development yet. I'd only done web. I dove into my books. I was learning, getting all the fundamentals down. But once I did get the fundamentals down and I was able to complete tickets and work within my team, I kind of just shifted my focus there, doing tickets, getting new work, and I kind of abandoned my zeal for learning new things because I felt like I knew just about enough to get the work done. And obviously because I was on my apprenticeship, I used it as an excuse, like yeah, I will continue, you know, doing learning next year after I finish my final exams. But I think if I just continue doing independent learning, it doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit, it would have really expedited my growth and my knowledge, and I would definitely know more than I know today, because it has been like a while. And technology is always changing, it's dynamic. So in order to keep up with the times and continue to understand the market, I need to continue learning. It's very important. But don't try and cram too much in a short space of time. That's one thing that I made sure I tried not to do, because yeah, fair enough, okay, I've gone through all of this, but it's more likely you retain the knowledge when you take it at a steady pace, and it gives you time to actually put into practice the things you've learned. So you've learned something, just go and, you know, practice it, see if you can do it. Don't just learn it and say, yeah, I got it, move on, because we all know what cramming is. If I ask you a question they asked you in your uni exam, let's see if you remember. But yeah, don't cram it. Another thing I would have done differently is not to shy away from difficult tickets. Nowadays, I tend not to do that. But when I first started, I was looking at tickets like, that looks a bit tricky. Maybe I should leave it to the pros. But the thing is, running away from those harder tickets will only hinder your learning. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. So even if you know you can't complete it, you can pick it up and ask for help or pair with someone. So even if someone else picks it up, you can message them like, I saw you took this ticket, do you mind if I pair with you as you work on it so I can watch what you're doing and learn from it? Like, it's fine, like your team are there to help you. Ask for help if you need it, there's nothing wrong with it. And once you do that, you can tackle that ticket in the future. You know how to do it, or at least you know where to start. So definitely don't run away from those big tickets. It's not going to help you. And off the back of that, yeah, pair with people that are above you, senior engineers, because they usually take on the more difficult tasks, and it's not that you're going to be doing it. You can just watch them, ask questions as they're doing it, ask them to explain certain things to you. Never feel like a burden. You're there to improve, they're there to improve, everyone's there to help. So yeah, just do what you got to do. So the last section of this video is common mistakes aspiring developers and current developers often make. First thing is comparing yourself to others. Everyone is on their own path, their own journey. Don't say, oh, we've both been here this amount of time, and she knows more than me, or I can't do this yet, or why am I still behind? Like, stop comparing yourself to others. The only person you should compare yourself to is yourself. Make sure you're growing each day. Some people learn faster, some people learn slower. That is nothing to do with you. All that's to do with you is yourself, making sure that you're on your game and you're doing what you can, okay? Another mistake is getting attached to your code. Like I said before, there's code reviews, especially if you're starting out and you solve a problem. You feel so proud of yourself, like, oh my gosh, I wrote this code and it works, yay. And then you put it for code review and someone was like, okay, it works, but it's all kind of wrong, so you need to change this, da 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 da. Don't get defensive, like, oh, my code, like, I don't really want to change it. They're telling you to change it for a reason, and you don't have to change something, but especially for seniors reviewing your code, someone that's been there for so many years is saying this is the most efficient way to do it. At least ask, okay, why? Okay, what does that mean? Like, learn about it. Don't be defensive about your code. It's not your child. It's okay to change. And that goes nicely into not seeking or listening to feedback. First of all, you should seek feedback. So you should actually be like, can you have a look at my code, or what can I do better? But you should also listen to it. So don't let them tell you, like, well, and you just do nothing about it. You should actually listen to it. It's only going to help you. And even if you listen to feedback and it doesn't quite work out, you've tried, like, you tried to do it and it might not be the best feedback. Not every feedback is something, okay, I have to change myself or how I code. But at least listen and actually look for feedback, because it means you're trying to improve. Another common mistake is a lack of documentation when coding. Basically, if you're coding, someone else should be able to come and look at your code and see exactly what's going on. Like, if you're writing a formula that's supposed to, like, give random numbers, for example, don't just do x2 plus 3 4 5 plus minus that equals and give a b c. No, because someone will look at it and be like, what does this do? They might try and run it and figure it out, but it should say function generating random numbers. Like, it should be that clear. The function name should say exactly what it does. Even if you have to use symbols, X and Y, whatever, you should annotate your code. You should write comments in your code. This part gets a random number. This part checks if the number's even. This part changes the number if it's not even. Like, if that, like, just, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Your code should be clear to someone that didn't write it. Always. Always. So, another common mistake is copying and pasting code when you're finding a solution on Google without actually figuring out or knowing how it works. There's a lot of times Stack Overflow as a developer will become your best friend. There's a lot of solutions on there, so Google for tech, for me anyway, and a lot of the time you might be figuring out how to do something and you can't. You go to Stack Overflow and ask the question, and someone puts a piece of code, you put it into your work and it just works. Like, you don't know what it means, but it works, and you're like, fair enough, and you move on. You haven't learned anything. You haven't learned anything. And if someone comes to the code review and asks you, oh, why did you do it this way? What are you gonna say? Google told me to. Like, you need to try and figure out why it works. Another common mistake is getting code to work without following good practices. There is good coding practices and there are definitely bad coding practices. Yeah, fair enough, your code may work and do what it's supposed to do, but if it's all over the place, or it can't be reused in anywhere else, or you have a function that does like 10 million things instead of 1 or 2 things, your code isn't that good. It may work, but it's not good code. And especially if you're in a business or working for a company, someone else may need to edit that code in the future for any kind of new features. And when they come to do that, it's going to be very hard if you've written a whole lot of mumbo jumbo code. All right, make it easy for yourself and make it easy for everyone else. One way to do this is to have a consistent coding style. If you're going to write code, why would you do one class one way and another one a different way? Make sure you have consistent coding styles. This can be indentations. Why would you indent it by 2 on one class and then by 4 on a different class? It's the same project. That doesn't make any sense. So make sure you're doing that. Naming conventions, like, don't use camel case for one class and use underscores for another class. Make it make sense, okay? It's the same project. Another common mistake, especially when you've just started out, is large functions that do many things. There's something called the single responsibility rule, and it means a function should have a single responsibility. So even if you want to create something that gives you a number, then based on that number it gives the equivalent letter in the alphabet, and then based on that letter it gives you an animal. You shouldn't have one function that gets the number and changes it to a letter and gives you an animal. One function should give you a number. That number should be passed into a different function which gives you the letter, which should be passed into a different function which gives you the animal, because that is a lot easier to maintain. If you want to change anything, it's a lot easier to change when they're separated. You separate the interests. So please stop combining everything into the same function. Please don't do that. Don't do that. It's a no-no when you're coding. It's a big no-no. The last mistake is diving straight into that code with no planning or no idea where you're going from here. Obviously, if it's a small ticket and it's something quick, yeah, like just change this and update the test. Yeah, you don't really need a plan for that. But when you have a 5-pointer, like a chunky ticket, please make a plan. Please, you don't have to make it doesn't have to be a whole page. It can be a few bullet points in your notes. Just at least have some structure into how you're going to tackle this, or have some direction, even if it's mentally, because some people don't need to write every little thing down. Sometimes in your head you're like, okay, I need to do this, then this, then this, and this. At least don't just say open the code and start typing, okay, let me do this little bit, then move here and then come back. It's a bit messy that way, and it's easier to make mistakes and miss things out. Also, it's less efficient. It wastes time, because often you'll do something, then move to another part and realize, oh, I should have done it this way because it makes it easier to do this. Then you have to redo things, refactor things, and it just wastes time and it's less efficient, in my opinion. But yeah, that's it, guys. I've told you things I did to progress as a developer, things I would have done differently in hindsight, and common mistakes made by current and aspiring developers. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you. I hope it's informative wherever you are in your career. If you enjoyed this content, we're going to come back with another Let's Talk Tech episode. Don't forget to like, to comment, and to subscribe. You know the vibe, and I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.